Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Okay, so 19th juz summary, or rather I should say specific ayat summarization. Okay, so Surah Shu'ara. Surah Shu'ara, this is a Makki surahs. This is a Makki surah, which means that was revealed before migration. Shu'ara means poets. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts the surah with Tasin Mim. These are disconnected letters, and only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam know the meaning of Tasin Mim. And they come throughout the Quran, these disjointed letters, Alif Lam Mim Ra, Tasin Mim, Kaf Haya, Ain Sad, and so on and so forth. And the meaning of these are known only to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Of course, this did not prevent the scholars from speculating as to what these words mean. Of course, they were speculating, and the speculation was based on their best judgment. But after giving their version of what they felt was what they meant, they would always say at the end, Allahu wa Rasulu A'lam, that Allah and His Prophet know best. So the surah begins with Tasin Mim. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala proceeds to say, Tilka ayatul kitab al-mubin, that these are the revealed verses of the clear book of Allah Azza wa Jal, that elucidates the truth. Now this verse, لَعَلَّكَ بَاخِعٌ نَفْسَكَ أَلَّا يَكُونُوا مُؤْمِنِينَ. This verse over here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that perhaps, O Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, bakhi'un nafsaka, you would consume yourself with sorrow because these people who are belying you, who are falsifying you, they will not become believers. So this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that you're going to consume yourself with sorrow. This was the psychological state of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's psychological state was such that he was always consumed with this thought, this fikr, this notion that if he doesn't do his job in making sure the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is being received by each and every single person on the earth, then these people, they will be taken to Jahannam. So he felt a lot of remorse on that, and this had a profound effect on the psyche of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It had an effect on the psychological state of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he was always consumed with this fikr, this desire, that he wanted everyone to receive the message of Allah so that everyone can accept and come into the fold of Islam. Because the Prophet ﷺ didn't want anybody to go to Jahannam. This was his state. He did not want anyone to go to Jahannam. He did not want that anyone be punished in the hereafter. So because of this, and when people would disbelieve in the Prophet ﷺ, they would mock him. They would say that, this message doesn't make sense. He would be consumed with so much grief that, what can I do to make these people believe in me? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that لَعَلَّكَ بَاخِعٌ نَفْسَكَ أَلَّا يَكُونُوا مُؤْمِنِينَ, that perhaps, O Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you would consume yourself with sorrow, with grief, because these people who are belying you or falsifying you, they will not become believers. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is consoling the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam over here, that this grief that you're feeling, your job is to spread the message. Your job and your responsibility is to spread the message, and it is upon me to show people the path, to give people guidance. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about the state of the people that he was delivering the message to, Inna sha nunazzil alayhim min as-sama' ayah فَظَلَّتْ أَعْنَاقُهُمْ لَهَا خَاضِئِينَ. If we so wanted, if we so desired, if it was our decree, we shall send down upon them a sign, an ayah from the heavens, from the skies, so miraculous that their necks, their neck shall remain ever bent in submission to it. That if this was the desire of Allah, if this was the decree of Allah, then we would have sent down an ayah and everyone would have believed and they would have submitted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if that was the case, then the whole concept of ghaib is lost. The whole concept in believing in the unseen is lost. And this world is all about believing in the unseen. This world is all about believing that whatever this man is telling you, you have to consider it to be the truth. That whatever Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying, he's giving you clear and manifest signs. And for the mind which is ever thinking, for the mind that is full of reflection and pondering, that mind will come to the conclusion that Allah is one. And this man who is busy spending his entire life spreading and disseminating the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this man is a truthful person and we have no reason to falsify him. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is consoling the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam over here that look, your job and your responsibility is to spread the message of Islam. Don't worry, do not be consumed with grief, because these people, they're not going to believe. If they have already decided that they're not going to believe in you, then that is their loss. And in the hereafter, they're going to suffer from it. Now, this shows that how much Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam cared about the ummah. That the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam desire was always that what he can do to show the ummah and to show the nations to come, to show the people who will come till the day of judgment, that what they need to do to attain salvation in this world and to attain salvation in the hereafter. So this is why the Prophet ﷺ, he had such amazing people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created such amazing people around Rasulullah ﷺ that they made sure that they took the legacy of the Prophet ﷺ and they passed it forward, similar to how a runner passes a baton to the runner ahead of him. You know, when you have relay races, so you have a few runners, and each runner, they have to pass the baton. So the Sahaba, they took the baton from the Prophet ﷺ, they passed it on to the next generation. They passed it on to the next generation, and so on and so forth until this baton has been passed to us. Now we have a responsibility as well to make sure that the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is received by the coming generations. Otherwise, we're not doing our job as being from the ummah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions in a hadith that convey from me, even if it is one word, even if it is one ayah. And it's very likely that the people who you are conveying to, they will be better retainers of that message than yourself. They will be better retainers of that message than yourself. So this is the reason why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has told us that whatever we learn about Islam, we have a responsibility first and foremost to convey it to our family, to make sure that we provide our families with a solid Islamic upbringing, and they in turn will do that to their families. Otherwise, if they don't do that, then a generation will be lost. A generation will be lost. They will be completely oblivious when it comes to the Islamic teaching. And we see that in the generations, the world that we are living in today, especially in secular countries, industrialized nations. We see this. It's become very common, where entire generations are lost. The mother and father, they weren't practicing religion. What happens? So then the kids, they also don't practice religion. And before you know it, the mother and father die. The mother and father, they leave this world. And after they leave this world, the kids they don't even have rudimentary knowledge how to give ghusl, how to give their mother and father ghusl. No, isn't that a shame? That they receive no Islamic training their entire life, and they are unable to even do ghusl of their mother and father. So they have to call other people to do ghusl. I mean, this is the least we can do. At least learn the fara'id. We have to learn the fara'id. We have to learn that which is obligatory upon us. And many people, there's so many issues like this, where kids, they don't know rudimentary Islam. That how much zakat do I need to give? What is the percentage of zakat I need to give? How many rakats are there in the various salawat throughout the day? These are very simplistic questions, but our kids, they don't know the answer to these questions. And is this is a blot on us. This is a blot on us, that we have not done our jobs as parents, as teachers, as educators, in making sure that our kids receive authentic Islamic knowledge. So the least they can do is learn the fara'id, learn the mandatory acts, learn what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made farad, learn what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has instructed us to do, and hopefully they can pass that information, they can pass that knowledge on to others. Otherwise, we have such beautiful masajid, we have systems in place so that our kids are learning. So I mean, we should have this shauq and this desire and hayman, that okay, I'm going to send my kids to the masjid, I'm going to make sure that they learn at the masjid rudimentary Islamic knowledge. They should know about the salat and the arkan of salat. What are the things that can be done, what are the things that cannot be done, the obligation of zakat. How should I discharge my obligation of zakat? What shouldn't I be doing when I'm fasting? Right? Uh, what is janaza? How should I pray janaza? What is the method of washing? What is the method of kafan? How should I shroud the body? And these are things that as Muslims we should know, and we should be aware of, and we should be teaching our kids. So the Prophet ﷺ, in this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is displaying the concern that Rasulullah ﷺ had for the entire ummah, that he wanted each and every single person from his ummah to come into the fold of Islam. Because and this is why the Prophet ﷺ saved his dua, that every prophet was given a dua. Rasulullah ﷺ mentions in hadith that every prophet was given a dua. And all of the prophets, they used up their dua in this world, except Rasulullah ﷺ. So he is saving, the Prophet ﷺ said that I will save my dua for the akhirah. And I hope that that dua will be accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the plains of qiyamah. That when I'm standing on the plains of the day of judgment, then I will use that dua. I will make dua for my ummah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives them. So this was the concern that the Prophet ﷺ had, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is highlighting this concern, that O Prophet, you would consume yourself with sorrow, with grief, because these people who are belying you, they will not become believers. And this is a fact, because they don't want to become believers, and they have chosen their fate. But you're going to consume yourself with grief. You're going to destroy yourself. You're going to affect yourself. You're going to harm yourself. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is consoling the Prophet ﷺ. And this was one of the functions of wahi. This was why, one of the wisdoms of why wahi came over a period of 23 years, because it consistently provided solace and comfort to the Prophet ﷺ. Whereas the previous celestial books, they were revealed to their prophets all at once. The Quran was the exception. It was revealed over a period of 23 years. And this was one of the wisdoms behind its revelation over 23 years. Because at different intervals throughout the life of the Prophet ﷺ, it would provide Rasulullah ﷺ with comfort, and very much needed comfort when he needed it the most. So this was one occasion where the Prophet ﷺ needed to be comforted, because he felt this sorrow and this grief that his people are rejecting him, and they're basically going and they're going and they're walking towards Jahannam. I mean, we should put ourselves in the mindset of Rasulullah ﷺ, that how would we feel if it was our own family members who are deliberately walking into the fire? Would we not care? Would we not want to just drag them away from that? And this is exactly how Rasulullah ﷺ felt. So we need to sometimes get into the mindset of Rasulullah ﷺ, get into the mindset of the Prophet. Why were they? Why did they try? What gave them that drive? This is the drive. This was the drive. This drive was the drive that they had, was the concern that they didn't want people walking towards the fire. And this should be our desire as well with our families. We need to start with our families. We need to start with our Muslim communities. Those who are distant from Islam, we need to do our job in making sure maximum people are coming to the masjid. Alhamdulillah, we have so many people coming for the Eid prayer. Where did these people disappear? We have so many people coming to the masjid. When, alhamdulillah, when the masjids are open, we have so many people coming to the masjid. But outside of the month of Ramadan, what happens? The masajid, they empty out and no one comes to the masjid. Isn't it baffling that a a sunnah salat such as Taraweeh has a lot more musallis than the fard prayer at Fajr time? I mean, this is baffling. We have so many people who are doing Taraweeh, but very few people who are doing the fard. I mean, one of the salawat is fard, and one of the salat is sunnah. Now, what does that mean? This means that we've taken this certain salawat, such as Eid, Taraweeh, as we've taken them as rituals. And when something becomes ritualistic, it poses a big problem, because then we don't feel that spirituality. We don't feel any benefit from that prayer because it has become ritualistic. So when things become ritualistic and it's not infused with spirit, then we just go through the motions as quickly as possible. And this is one of the reasons why our prayers don't have any effect on us, because our prayers have become ritualistic. We just go through it like robots, and that shouldn't be the case. We shouldn't be going through our prayers with like an automaton, like a robot. We should feel the concentration and devotion in prayer. I mean, if we look to the prayer of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the prayer of the Sahaba, and the Sahaba, they were praying their salawat and arrows were being taken out of them. Arrows were being dug out of them. Imagine the concentration they were showing in prayer, that they were capable of not feeling while they were in prayer when an arrow was being taken out of them. Look at the concentration of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I mean, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is clearly stating that qurratu aini salah, that the coolness of my eyes is salah. I mean, again, we have to get into the mindset of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to really understand certain statements, really understand the depth of what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying. And all of the a'mal that we're doing, all of the acts of devotion that we're doing, one of the great sages of Islam by the name of Ibn Ata'illah, he wrote a book on it's called the Hikam of Ibn Ata'illah, which means aphorisms. So these are statements of great and profound wisdom. So one such statement that he mentioned was al-a'malu suwarun qa'ima, that acts of devotion, they are but empty husks. Al-a'malu suwarun qa'ima, they are like empty husks. Wa arwahuha wujudu sirri al-ikhlasi fiha, and the ruh, the spirit of those acts of devotion is to put sincerity behind them, to infuse them with sincerity. This is what we need in our acts of devotion. We need to infuse them with sincerity, similar to how we infuse, when we make our cup of tea. Those from the subcontinent, they know this best, that when we make tea, what do? We take an infuser and we put the tea in it and make sure that all of that tea, every bit of taste, it spreads and permeates through that water. So same thing with our acts of devotion. Sincerity needs to permeate each and every aspect of it. And the way to do that is to concentrate on the prayer, the beginning, the middle, and the end. That we need to infuse our prayers with sincerity as much as possible, and then we'll feel the ruhaniya, then we'll feel the spirit behind our prayers and acts of devotion. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all understanding. Continuing on. Okay. So I think I mentioned this, but I'll go over this again. حتى إذا أتوا على واد النمل. Okay. So this is in Surah An-Naml, where the story of Sulaiman alayhi salam is mentioned. So وحشر لسليمان جنوده من الجن والإنس والطير فهم يوزعون. So verse number 17, we assembled before Suleiman, before Suleiman, there was an assembly of jinn, humankinds, and the birds, and they were duly put in rows. They were duly selected, put in rows, and to march in force. حتى إذا أتوا على واد النمل. And when they came upon the valley of ants, an ant said, قالت نملة يا أيها النمل ادخلوا مساكنكم. That, O ants, enter quickly into your dwellings. لا يحطمنكم سليمان وجنوده. And don't let Suleiman and his hosts crush you while they are unaware, because they don't know. They're people that have no idea what they're doing, so they don't know. فتبسم ضاحكا. So Suleiman alayhi salam, he smiled and he was laughing at her statement, and he said in gratitude من قولها وقال ربي أوزعني أن أشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علي وعلى والدي وأن أعمل صالحا ترضاه وادخلني برحمتك في عبادك الصالحين. So he smiled, laughing at her statement, and Sulaiman alayhi salam said in gratitude that, O my Lord, that give me the ability to give thanks for your grace, for the ni'am, for the blessings that you have bestowed upon me, with which you have graced me and my parents, and that I do righteous deed with which you are happy with me, you're pleased with me, and admit me by your mercy into the company of your righteous servants. This is the dua that Ibrahim alayhi salam made. Now, this is an amazing dua that he after something like this happens to him. Now, there's a few points over here. Number one, that this is an animal of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is telling its fellow ants that go into your homes. So because you need to, this is where you will be preserved and protected. So this is the first lesson, that if there is trouble, if there is any harm, the first and foremost thing that we need to do is go home. Go home and stay in our homes. And this is the case with what's going on outside. If it's better to stay home, then we should only go out if it's absolutely necessary. So this is an animal and a creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is saying that go into your home so that you are protected and no harm befalls you. So similarly, we too, if there's fitan, trials, tribulations, if there's a plague somewhere, if there's a pandemic somewhere, epidemic somewhere, then our home should contain us. Our homes will become our sanctuary. This is the first point. Second point is that look at Sulaiman alayhi salam, of how he acknowledged the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is something that we need to do on a daily basis. That when we acknowledge the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we should make dua at that time, that, oh Allah, you have blessed me with this favor. You have blessed me with so many blessings by your grace. And bless me with doing righteous deeds. Make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at that time when we have acknowledged the favors, the various favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we should make dua to Allah, that you have give me the tawfiq and ability to do righteous deeds with which you are pleased, and admit me by your mercy into the company of your righteous servants. So which means what? That, oh Allah, give me the ability to be in the company of the righteous, the truthful people. And again, it's all about good company, that our company will define who we are. If somebody wants to see how a person is or what is the personality of a certain individual, then we just look at that person's company. If that person's company is good company, then we will have a favorable opinion of that person. But if that person's company is bad company, they have a negative influence on him, then of course we're not going to look at that person favorably. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all the ability to be with those who are good company, those who are truthful, and those who remind us of what our responsibilities are in this world, and those who can help us attain salvation in the hereafter. Okay, we'll stop over here. Inshallah, we'll start with the 20th tomorrow. Okay, let's see, what do we have today? Okay, let me see if we have any questions. Actually, while I'm looking up the questions, I did have an interesting story that I read. So it was about Sultan Sikandar Lodi. So Sultan Sikandar Lodi, he was, I mean, the this was in uh, this was in pre-modern India. So pre-modern India saw a lot of it saw at least, I would say, seven eight rulers from different uh, from different clans and different regimes. So India at that time, it was the first ruler was the Mamluk. It was during the Mamluk time. So there was two Mamluk dynasties. One was in Egypt and one was in India. So the Mamluk dynasty in India, this was started by Qutbuddin Aybak. Qutbuddin Aybak. So he was a Mamluk. This was a slave dynasty. And then after the Mamluks, you had the Khalji dynasty and the Tughlaq dynasty, and you have the Sayyid dynasty. And one of them was the Lodi dynasty. So there was one king by the name of Sultan Sikandar Lodi of the Lodi dynasty. And when he came into power, he was a good Muslim, and he was knowledgeable of the Islamic sciences to some extent, but he was kind of a bigot, in the sense that he had hatred for anything that was un-Islamic. Now, if that's not channeled properly, then this could lead to problems. So what happened was that the Hindus, they would bathe in these areas called Ghats, Ghat. This was a place where they would bathe, and this was sacred to them. It was sacred to the Hindus. So what he did was that he called the scholars. Now his desire was to completely, raise them to the ground. He didn't want the Hindus bathing there. He disliked it. So he wanted a fatwa. He wanted a religious edict from the scholars of that time. So he called them, and all of them said, yeah, it's permissible. So the one scholar by the name of Abdullah, and he was the Grand Mufti. So he asked him. So he said that no, it's not permissible for you to do that, and he gave his reasoning that this is something that they consider holy, and if they consider it holy, then it's not our place to destroy their places of worship or whatever they're doing over there, even though it may be against Islam. This was not what. And then he cited some precedents from from classical Islam in the time of the caliphs and those who came after. So Sultan Sikandar Lodi, he became angry at this response, that how can you do something, how can you say this, I'm going to kill you now. So the scholar wasn't run of the mill scholar as well. He was a brave person. So he said that, yeah, you could do whatever you want. Here's my turban, and my turban, it's going to serve as my kafan. You can kill me, and you can do whatever you want, but I'm not going to backtrack from my opinion. This is not permissible. It's haram for you to do that, and you will be asked about it on the day of judgment. So then he calmed down, and he understood that whatever he was saying, this is the truth. So long story short, sometimes when you're in a position of power and you want to do something, you can't always do what you want to do. You need to take advice and seek counsel from people who might have a different idea of what is the truth or what's the right course of action. Okay, so here's the question I got. So do lancing devices break the wudu? Okay, so for example, when a person pricks his finger to check blood sugar, uh, um, does the wudu break or not? So in principle, if wudu spreads beyond a wound, then it's flowing blood, and this invalidates the wudu, and accordingly, wudu will have to be renewed. So if there's any needle or something, and then As long as the blood stays in one spot, it doesn't move from there, then it's fine. Wudu does not break. But once the blood moves from that area, you'll have to renew your wudu. Okay. What else do we have? Okay, and I guess that's it. Yeah. Okay. I had one more thing actually. Let's see. So in light of the i'tikaf coming in very soon, last 10 days of Ramadan. So dua that we should read. So Aisha radiallahu anha, she asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that, O Prophet of Allah, if I know it is Laylatul Qadr, what dua should I make? So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, advising her, said that make this dua, Allahumma innaka afoon tuhibbul af fa'fu anni. That, O Allah, you are oft forgiving, meaning that you forgive all types of sins. And fa'fu anni, so forgive me. So this is a very comprehensive, powerful dua a person can make. So these last 10 days which are coming and drawing near, this is the dua that we should be making. Allahumma innaka afoon tuhibbul af fa'fu anni. Do it, O Allah, you are oft forgiving, you love to forgive, fa'fu anni, so forgive me. Very easy dua to memorize. Allahumma innaka afoon tuhibbul af fa'fu anni. And this is authentic hadith. It's in Tirmidhi, it's in Ahmad, it's in Ibn Majah, it's in Nasa'i's Amal al-Yawm wal Layla, it's in Ibn Sunni, and it's also in Mustadrak al-Hakim. Okay, so what else do we have? All right. So this is the dua. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all understanding. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our acts of devotion. Jazakumullah khairan. Yes, Ustad Ahmad, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep you happy. It's very nice to reconnect with you. Inshallah, once this pandemic is over, hopefully we can meet up. Jazakallah khairan. I will see everyone tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.